There are times when a team is just able to catch lightning in a bottle, when everything just seems to break right in their direction, when the team seems like they can't do anything wrong. The Washington Commanders just had one of those seasons. 6 of the Commanders' final 7 regular season wins were by 6 points or less, including some of the craziest moments that we saw in the 2024 NFL regular season. Then that juice carried over into their wildcard matchup where they beat the Buccaneers for their first playoff win since 2006 and carried that momentum all the way to the NFC Championship game. This season will be most known for Jayden Daniels' incredible rookie year performance, the best we've ever seen at the quarterback position. But it goes way further than that. So let's take a look at how the Washington Commanders were able to defy all expectations to make it just one game away from the Super Bowl.
Getting longer by the second. Well, we're back at the 30-yard line. Now you can step into it. Here comes the Hail Mary with the game on the line. And the ball is caught! It's a miracle! It's so real! 25-20, 15, 10, 5, pick, 6, touchdown! Touchdown, Washington! Come on!
But let's rewind back to the 2023 offseason to see where this really all started. It's July 21st, 2023, and the sale of the Washington Commanders to the Harris ownership group was officially announced after an agreement of sale was originally announced in April for a league record $6.05 billion. The stain that was Daniel Snyder was finally gone from the Washington Commanders following 24 years of scandals, financial issues, and overall terrible vibes brought to the organization and its fan base. Now, there wasn't immediate success following the sale of the team, as there also weren't any sweeping changes made across the organization. The entire coaching staff was essentially the same, aside from the hiring of Eric Bieniemy as offensive coordinator, which didn't pan out as he was fired towards the end of the season, along with defensive coordinator Jack Del Rio. So even though the first season under new ownership wasn't a success record-wise, this is exactly the kind of season that the Commanders organization needed to have a phenomenal 2024 season. Because the team went 4-13 in 2023, they were able to secure the second overall pick in the draft class with multiple great options at the quarterback position. They also moved on from their previous coaching staff to bring in a new leader in Dan Quinn, along with former Cardinals head coach Cliff Kingsbury as offensive coordinator, along with Joe Witt Jr. as defensive coordinator. And they also hired Adam Peters as general manager, who was with the 49ers organization since 2017 and served as assistant general manager since 2021. If it wasn't clear enough what the Commanders were planning to do with the number 2 pick in the draft, they traded away Sam Howell on March 24th to officially usher in a new leader at the quarterback position. Now, before I get to the draft, I wanted to go back and examine some of the offseason moves, especially the coaching moves, and see what the general consensus was of those moves when they happened. For the head coach opening, there were some notable younger names that Commanders fans were teased with, like Ravens defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald, Rams defensive coordinator Raheem Morris, and most prized of them all, Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. The Ben Johnson saga was the most fascinating of them all. Now, all of the reports out there are of course going to be heavily influenced by the source, so let's keep that in mind. On January 8th, 2024, the Commanders requested an interview with Lions OC and DC, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. By January 26, 2024, people were already pinning Ben Johnson as a heavy favorite to secure the Commanders' head coaching job. Johnson interviewed with 5 teams in the month of January and was reportedly set to meet with the Commanders in Detroit on January 30th, 2024. With a contingent of the Commanders' front office in the air on the way to Detroit, Washington first found out on Twitter that Ben Johnson pulled his name from the Commanders' head coaching search and got a text from Johnson a few minutes later informing the team of his decision. Now here's where things get a little messy. Reports then came out saying that Ben Johnson's asking price spooked some teams and that he wasn't the head coaching lock that some people thought. Then a report came out from Albert Breer, which said that Ben Johnson didn't do too well in his interviews with the Commanders. After that, there was a tweet from Jenna Lane at ESPN, which said that Ben Johnson was turned off by Commanders ownership, saying that they're basketball guys, and felt like they were a little too confident in their football opinions. Again, this is all hearsay, but all in all, After Ben Johnson returned back to the Lions, Mike Macdonald got hired by the Seahawks, and Raheem Morris got hired by the Falcons, the Commanders needed to pivot and focused in on Dan Quinn as their new head coach. The Commanders announced the hiring of Dan Quinn on February 3rd, 2024, and Cliff Kingsbury and Joe Witt Jr. were announced as the new coordinators 2 days later. Now, the reception to this hiring from Commanders fans was poor to say the least, with people saying, hopefully the 2026 coaching cycle is young OCs that want to be promoted. And we got rid of Ron Rivera only to replace him with mayonnaise Ron Rivera. And absolute disaster. See y'all in 2025. Commanders fans were a bit more optimistic when it came to Cliff Kingsbury, given his proven success when solely focusing on the offense. Now, with all of the coaching hires covered, let's get to draft season. It was of course obvious that the Commanders were going to use the second overall pick for a quarterback, and it was fairly clear that the quarterback was going to be Jayden Daniels, as Caleb Williams was essentially a lock for the number 1 pick. But I wanted to focus on an event leading up to the draft that I found very funny when it happened, and I still find it funny now. Topgolf. The Commanders did things a little bit differently when evaluating the potential quarterbacks that they could choose with the number 2 pick. Instead of hosting individual sessions with each of the prospects, they hosted Jayden Daniels, JJ McCarthy, Drake May, and Michael Penix all at the same time, along with a larger group of prospects. Following meetings at the Commanders facility, Adam Peters and the front office took a group of prospects to Topgolf. Seems harmless, right? But just a fun activity to do with a bunch of young adults following a day filled with serious sit-down meetings. Well, what follows is only the kind of entertainment that the NFL offseason can provide. Jayden Daniels' agent, Ron Butler, turned to social media to tweet out ominous emojis in response to clips of the media talking about the Topgolf group outing. This spurred discussions on whether Jayden Daniels was upset with the Commanders for this unusual pre-draft exercise, and Adam Schefter later said on Get Up that Jayden Daniels' camp was frustrated by the Commanders' process because they expected to be a lock at the number 2 pick already. Well, this was all again just off-season entertainment because the Commanders picked Daniels with the number 2 pick, so that was that. But even though they drafted a rookie quarterback and theoretically could have done a slower rebuild, we should have known the Commanders' intentions to compete this season with the players that they brought in through free agency. The team signed 29-year-old Austin Eckler, 34-year-old Bobby Wagner, 28-year-old Frankie Louvu, 28-year-old Nick Allegretti, 27-year-old Tyler Biadasz, and others. In the offseason, the Commanders' over-under win total was just set at 6.5 wins, less than teams like the Colts, Saints, Bears, Jaguars, and Browns. So let's now fast forward to the regular season to see how the Commanders were able to capture lightning in a bottle. Week 1 was a tough loss against Tampa Bay, which isn't surprising, as it was a rookie Jayden Daniels going against a Todd Bowles-led defense. But counting stats-wise, Jayden Daniels did throw for 184 yards, with 88 on the ground, but 3 fumbles. The Commanders got their first win in Week 2 with no touchdowns, just field goals, in a 21-18 win against the Giants, with Austin Seibert kicking a 30-yard game-winning field goal with zeros on the clock. Week 3 was Daniels' coming-out party. On Monday Night Football against the struggling Bengals, Jayden Daniels showed out with 254 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, including a beautiful deep ball to Terry McLaurin with a little over 2 minutes left to pretty much ice the game. Weeks 4 and 5 were easier wins against the Cardinals and the Browns, beating those teams by a combined 47 points. And this is around the time when Jayden Daniels really started putting the league on notice. Across weeks 4 and 5, Daniels put up 600 total yards of offense, and through week 4, Jayden Daniels had the highest completion percentage through a quarterback's first 4 games at 82.1%. Not just for a rookie quarterback, but for all quarterbacks, beating out 2007 Tom Brady. Also, the Commanders in 2024 were historically dominant on 4th down, converting 20 of 23 attempts. And when you think of converting on short yardage 4th down attempts, your mind immediately goes to the tush push. But for the Commanders, they were able to convert on 87% of 4th downs without using a single quarterback sneak. Okay, but moving on to week 6, the Commanders faced the best team on their schedule thus far in the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens' offense ultimately ended up being too much for Washington's defense to handle, especially their secondary. But the game was close throughout, and Jayden had another good game with 269 yards through the air and 2 touchdowns. So although it was a disappointing loss to have on the record, Commanders fans were happy that the team was competitive and fought hard against a Super Bowl contender. Week 7 was a dominant performance from the Commanders, as they won by 33 points against the Panthers, even though Jayden Daniels left the game early after taking a shot to the ribs on the Commanders' opening drive. And this brings us to Week 8. Heading into the week, there was uncertainty if Daniels would be playing in the showdown of first and second overall draft picks, but he was eventually cleared before game time, and the stage was set. Both teams were playing well up until this point in the season, with the Bears at 4-2 coming off their bye week, and the Commanders at 5-2. But I'm rambling a little bit, because I'm a Bears fan, and this one hurts. After a good start for the Commanders, and then the Bears coming back down 12 to eventually go up by 3 with only 25 seconds left in the game, I thought this game was in the bag. Well, we all know what happened. And these are the types of things that only happen to a team that has been shown favor by the football gods. Or you just have to play Tyreek Stevenson. Regardless, the Commanders were now 6-2, and after another win against the bumbling New York Giants to bring them to a 7-2 record, the best start since 1996, Washington proceeded to drop 3 straight games, all by 1 score, to the Steelers, Eagles, and Cowboys. The ending to the Steelers game was rough, because Russ baited rookie Johnny Newton to jump offsides on 4th and 1, which sealed the win for the Steelers after a close back-and-forth game. The Week 11 matchup between the Commanders and the Eagles was low scoring until the 4th quarter, where the Eagles scored 20 points. And the Week 12 matchup against the Cooper Rush-led Cowboys was a goofy one, with a combined 31 points scored in the final 4 minutes. But the most important point was the one that was missed after kicker Austin Seibert missed a game-tying extra point that would have tied the game up at 27-27. We did have another Hail Mary attempt to end the game, but this one was batted down and intercepted. Following 3 straight losses, there were some Commanders fans calling this team frauds, saying that Cliff was being far too conservative with his play calling, and saying that this roster was never built to be a playoff team. So was the Commanders' early season magic finally wearing off? And would this team actually end the season closer to their offseason expectations? Actually, the opposite. Following a get-right game against the Titans where Washington won by 23, with Jayden having 4 total touchdowns on 25 of 30 passing, the Commanders headed into their bye week with an 8-5 record, and hopeful that Marshawn Lattimore, who they traded for back in early November, would be ready to go against his old team. There were 4 games left for the Commanders, so Washington fans were hopeful that they could pull out enough wins in this final stretch to make it into the wild card. What actually happened was 4 straight wins by a combined 14 points, which kicked off a magical end to an already surprising season. Against the Saints, the Commanders thought they would maybe get some of their luck turned on them after Spencer Rattler threw a touchdown to Foster Moreau with zeros on the clock. But the Saints weren't able to convert their 2-point conversion, so Commanders win. In their Week 16 matchup, Philly went up 21-7 in the first quarter, even though Jalen Hurts left the game early with a concussion. The Commanders put the game within 7 points heading into halftime, but the Eagles were able to extend their lead to 13 towards the end of the third quarter. But Washington was able to score touchdowns on 3 of their final 4 drives, including a game-winning touchdown thrown to Jamison Crowder with only 6 seconds left on the clock, which was Daniels' 5th touchdown of the game. This game also showed something that would prove to be vital for the Commanders for the rest of their season: Jayden Daniels' ability to sustain long, methodical, clutch drives. None of the passes on the Commanders' final drive were longer than 10 yards, but Jayden was able to keep the drive alive through the air and on the ground, and always keeping the Washington offense ahead of the sticks. Heading into the second-to-last game of the season against the Falcons, the game was flexed into a primetime Sunday Night Football slot and had playoff ramifications for the Commanders. If the Commanders win this game, they lock themselves into at least the 7th seed for the playoffs. This was a great game, and ultimately came down to the final minutes of the fourth quarter. After the Commanders went 3-and-out on their final drive of regulation, the Falcons had the opportunity to steal this game and keep their own playoff hopes alive. Riley Patterson had a 56-yard game-winning field goal opportunity, but it was just short, which sent the game to overtime. The Commanders got the ball first, and this game-winning drive was again a display in Daniels' ability to take this offense on long drives, taking what's open, and using his legs to convert when it seems like the defense has him dead to rights. So as we head into Week 18, a Commanders win would clinch the 6th seed in the playoffs. Jayden only played the first half, as the coaching staff kept him out of the second half due to leg soreness. So as Marcus Mariota entered the game down 9-3, he proceeded to lead Washington on 3 touchdown drives. The final game-winning drive went 91 yards off of 11 plays, where Mariota ultimately threw a game-winning touchdown pass to Terry McLaurin in the corner of the end zone with only 3 seconds left on the clock, which earned him the franchise record for receiving touchdowns at 13. So Washington ends their regular season with 12 wins, with 4 straight weeks winning off of last-second plays or in overtime. Washington's offensive line was better than expected, coming in at 10th according to PFF's offensive line power ranking. Their defense was better than expected, ranking 13th in terms of yards allowed per game. Jayden Daniels was a revelation, putting on the best rookie quarterback season in NFL history. Terry McLaurin finally got to show what he can do with a competent QB under center, and the coaching staff proved the fans who were worried in the offseason wrong. And although if you told fans in the middle of the season that the Commanders would make it to the playoffs, they probably would have been pleased that they just made it. But expectations changed. Now they wanted their team to contend, but more realistically, to get at least one playoff win. The Commanders matched up against the Buccaneers for their first playoff game since they faced the Buccaneers in 2020, with their last playoff win coming in 2005 to the Buccaneers. Funny enough, during these 3 matchups, Washington had a different name in each game. This game was tightly contested throughout, but there are 2 plays that I wanted to bring up that really pushed this game into the Commanders' favor. First was early in the 4th quarter after the Commanders weren't able to convert a 4th down at the 3-yard line. Baker attempted a fake handoff to Jalen McMillan and fumbled the ball, which was recovered by Bobby Wagner, setting up Washington right back in the red zone, where they eventually scored to put them up by 3. Then on the next Bucs drive, rookie center Graham Barton snapped the ball early, which forced Baker to awkwardly hand the ball off to Bucky Irving, which resulted in a loss of 2 yards and led to a field goal. So with the score tied up 20-20, the Commanders proceeded to take all the time off of the clock on their final drive, setting up kicker Zane Gonzalez with a 37-yard game-winning field goal opportunity. And of course, with how the Commanders' season had been going up until that point, it couldn't have just been a simple kick down the middle. It had to drift to the right upright, doink off of it, and then eventually make it in to win the game. Now in the divisional round matchup against the Lions, this didn't have the same dramatic ending as the last 5 games did. But that doesn't mean that it was any less satisfying. The Commanders went up 24-14 following a Quan Martin pick 6 where Frankie Louvu absolutely leveled Jared Goff. And although the Lions brought the game within 3 midway through the 3rd quarter, the Commanders took control shortly after and didn't look back to eventually win the game 45-31, with Jayden Daniels throwing for 299 yards and 2 touchdowns, the defense securing 4 interceptions, with rookie Mike Sanders with 2 of those picks, and Commanders fans rejoicing that they were going to the NFC Championship game for the first time since 1991. Fans in Washington were losing their minds after this win, and were almost in disbelief that this was actually happening. This was a dream season, made even better by the fact that this was all done with a rookie quarterback and a coaching staff in their first year with this team. We all know what happened in the NFC Championship game, but honestly, even following a huge loss against a division rival, Commanders fans were still very optimistic for their future, given that they weren't even supposed to make it this far in the first place. There are times when a team is favored by the football gods, and the 2024 Washington Commanders were one of those teams. 9 games won by 1 score in some of the most memorable ways possible. Some great injury luck, and really just everything coming together. Will it be the same next season? Who knows? But I'm sure that the 2024 season will be one that Commanders fans remember forever.
Left hand up. Who are we? The Commanders. Commanders. We fight for RDC. Who are we? The Commanders. 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 Left hand up, who are we?